I want to make Kirblog's all about this one anime that had used to rule the world, but now it makes you hurl because you're not 14 years old. It's Wonderland. Welcome everybody to the first installment of Animepril, my next themed month of Kirblogs. I told you it wasn't an April Fool's joke, and I meant it. So here we are. We're going to start things off with talking about, well, of course, let me address, this was sent in by Awesome Cakester on Twitter a while back. I know you've mentioned it a few times in your blogs, but an Inuyasha Kirblog would be interesting to see, and also the manga is better than the anime. So, let's talk about good old Inuyasha. I was hoping originally to do a lot of these in kind of the chronological order that I got into certain shows, so I'm kind of skipping all around because Yu Yu Hakusho would have been before this. But I thought this would be a good one to start things off with, and also I kind of wanted to have possibly a guest with me on the Yu Yu Hakusho one, so deal with it. But either way, Inuyasha. It started with Yu Yu Hakusho for me. There was one night back in the midst of my middle school years, very dark time, as those of you might know from other stories I've told before. I was up one night watching stuff on Cartoon Network, and continuing into Adult Swim at the time. When they had their action block on Saturday nights, and I was thinking I was going to be tuning into an episode of Yu Yu Hakusho uncut as they were playing them at the time, and then as it turned out, they had decided to eventually move that series to being on regular hours of Cartoon Network on Toonami with the edited version, but in its place one night, I was staying up and I happened to see an episode of Inuyasha. And I believe, I can't exactly remember the year. No, actually, hold on, pause. I'm going to look it up. Okay, we're back. If I'm going to edit the show, at least I'm going to be fucking honest with you all. So I looked it up, and this is what happens when you don't have an outline in front of you. The air date for the first episode that I watched, and I believe this would have been accurate, was for The Mystery of the New Moon and the Black-Haired Inuyasha on November 23rd, 2002. That is about right. So I think this was just before the time that I spent on TV Tome when Mike Lucas had moved away and all that stuff had happened, and led to the creation of that show, which is actually also perfect because those of you who are big fans of Tome and really know Inuyasha probably were able to pick up on a lot of the references that I had to at different points throughout the series, particularly in Tome. The use of Demon Alpha and Demon Zeto, or rather even just more so the choosing to identify those transformations of those characters as demon forms, a la Inuyasha's, full demon berserker type mode. But yeah, that episode was the first one I had seen that night. This was also back when they were airing two episodes at the same time. So actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it might have even been a little bit later than that, maybe in like repeats or something, because I remember that the first time I saw the episodes, this was back when Adult Swim was showing two episodes in a row every weekend. So sorry, to continue the actual story, I'm going all over the place. I watched that first episode where Inuyasha gets turned into a human from the full moon coming out, or the new moon, I should say. And as I was doing that, this was also the beginning of me becoming a fucking walking, talking voiceover encyclopedia. It's all about because I'm curious now. So Kagome being naked in a fucking hot tub, or not a hot tub, but a hot spring, was what kept me watching, like the 14-year-old that I was at the time. So yeah, good. Anyway, but yeah, and then I continued onward, and I was continuing to watch the show on weekends. And then eventually, it was really starting to mount in popularity more and more over time. I think kind of on my own, I had begun to start buying the DVDs. I had been Collector's Kingdom, which is the store I had mentioned a while ago, for where I used to get bootleg subtitled VHS tapes of Dragon Ball GT episodes and things like that. I would go there and buy. Once upon a time, back when Viz Media was still Viz Video, and they were producing DVDs with 3 whole episodes, which, by today's standards is completely fucking laughable, and thank God most companies don't do that anymore. But that said, I had quite a large amount. I think I had the first 3 seasons of Inuyasha collected eventually throughout my time of being really big into the show. I quit eventually just because I was like, I'm just going to watch the episodes on TV. I don't need to fucking own these copies of them. But yeah, funnily enough, that was also, I think, how I ended up seeing the first several episodes of the show was through those first 3 DVDs and seeing them properly introduce, the characters and, the main 5 characters and eventually Sesshomaru and a lot of them. And that was kind of my proper introduction to what the hell the show was really even about, because I was just kind of following it and kind of piecing together bits and pieces of it as the episodes were continuing to air on TV. And it was funny because it just kind of like continued more and more to like get popular, like kind of all around me. And I mean, obviously, because the target audience, well, maybe not the target audience, but I think what ended up being the big American audience of the series was teenagers. And it's weird because I didn't even realize until I think I looked it up again recently that the series was a shonen manga in Weekly Shonen Sunday. And I always saw it as something that was more geared towards girls. But then again, I guess in a way, Inuyasha, for in the time that it was popular and the time that like it was okay to like it, because in these days, as my little stupid musical number implied, it's kind of a joke if you still like the series. I mean, I still have kind of a soft spot for it, but I'll get to that a little later on. But yeah, it's kind of funny that like I mean, I think a lot of people more infamously know, not infamously, but are more aware of the female audience of it because there were lots of cute guys in the show, obviously. So and I mean to be fair, as I was kind of joking with my thing about Kagome earlier, is like there were lots of cute girls in it, and of course also then eventually when Sango shows up, I'm just like, Kagome who, again, I was young and stupid and I guess attracted to animated cartoon characters. Good. Anyway, so, but what the hell am I saying? Yeah, so it continued to kind of grow in popularity. Even at the time too, there were people I were meeting that were just like, oh God, this isn't a real show. This is all just like a fucking joke. I mean, obviously, Scott Ramsey-Mayer had his funny, request to do an Inuyasha VG Cats comic, to which he's like, it's Dragon Ball Z for girls. And I'm like, no, that's Sailor Moon is Dragon Ball Z for girls. Shut up. But yeah, it was just very interesting kind of seeing that sort of unfold very quickly all around me. And then, there were a lot of fan sites and everything. I remember the show was also, of course, still airing in Japan at the time. We were reasonably far behind, but, the episodes were continuing to air and the DVDs were coming out. I remember actually, because I was young enough, I was also, that was kind of funny because I don't think I've ever talked about this before on any Kirblog, but this was the time where I was, getting to have a little bit of a later curfew, as a teenager growing up, and because obviously I'm still abiding by the parents' rules, except for when I got to watch me some fucking anime on Adult Swim. So I would be sneakily staying up and turning on the, and this is the funny thing. I think that this is also what led me to eventually falling asleep in class, which I used to think was a total joke in cartoons, like in Doug on Nickelodeon or whatever, when characters fall asleep in class. I thought, people don't really do that. And then as soon as I get to high school, by that point I've been watching Inuyasha like pretty, far into it for a couple years by that point. And then I'm just like, I'm falling asleep in class. Probably because I'm staying up too late on weekday nights before I go into school the next fucking morning, and I'm watching the new episodes as they air on, at like 12:30 or whatever it was. I don't remember at the time. And just to think, like, and I know that Adult Swim was never like a big fan of like airing the show for so fucking long after it was even done. But the fact that like they were still continuing to air it for years and years and years because there was such a demand from people to be watching it that late, it really kind of says something to like the staying power of it all and everything. But also, kind of skipping ahead too and seeing like what was coming up. I was learning about the Shichin and Tai, the band of 7 characters, which were kind of like, they had a whole arc to themselves. And then Hakudoshi, which was one of the upcoming villain characters that, who I was really interested in and wanted to learn more about him. And I actually remember on his note, there was a Inuyasha fan panel that was run, I think it was by this one woman and her daughter, like a daughter and her mother together were running this panel that was about Inuyasha, and they had often had people from the show, like from the English production, guesting on there before. I think there was a funny incident. I wasn't around for this, but they had Richard Cox, who was the voice of Inuyasha in the English dub, come in, and he had a joke about how he was the one who names the English versions of the attacks, and people were curious about what the Kongo Soha attack, where he like Inuyasha slashes his blade and a bunch of like crystals come out in a big hailstorm or whatever. People were wondering what that was going to be called in English, which became Adamant Barrage, I believe. But I think Richard Cox made some joke about how, oh yeah, I'm the one who comes up with the English attack names, and we're calling that one Purple Monkey Dishwasher, and just I think people actually bought it, which was fucking like, really, guys, come on. And then I think there was also another, the one that I went to the year after that, I think, was they had Toshi Yoshida, who was, at the time, he was one of the producers for Viz, and now he's actually one of the head producers at Pokemon International. So I've technically worked for him when I was doing stuff on Pokemon back in the day, and he's a really funny guy. He was there on the panel, and they were joking about some of the upcoming episodes. And I remember this because this was in the midst of me becoming like a walking talking voiceover encyclopedia person. There was a joke they worked in, speaking of Hamtaro earlier, when I thought I recognized Kagome. In the Miroku episode that I saw that same night, and I was like, oh, Kagome sounds like the little girl from fucking Hamtaro or whatever. And then when Miroku is like, I wish for you to bear my children, in the dub, Kagome goes, hecka, like fucking Hamtaro character. And I brought that up, and then I at the time had heard that Hakudoshi, the villain, the little creepy kid character who was one of Naraku's incarnations or whatever, was going to be voiced by Kiara Zani, who was the voice of Hamtaro. And I brought that up about the whole Heke thing and et cetera, and that got kind of a laugh in the audience, and it was pretty funny at the time. But anyway, yeah, so that was whatever. Carrying on. I guess in terms of other specific things, favorite characters. There, you know what? Okay, so Inuyasha is I think pretty deserving in terms of like, you know, why a lot of people hate on it, like for perfectly good reasons. I think despite that, and I do still feel this way genuinely, I think that the main reason why not only the show and the manga in general lasted for so long is really because of its characters. You know, and there were other things too. I love the music of the series as well. I mean, the ending themes in particular were some. I mean, mainly because that was what I was seeing. Adult Swim wouldn't play the opening themes, so I was only seeing those in the DVDs at the time. But you know, Dearest and I can't remember the name of the first one, and there were some like annoying ones as well. But most of them were like really nice and like were kind of good for lulling me to sleep after a whole emotional journey of, you know, watching them go through these, you know, turmoilistic things or whatever. And also the BGM. I think Kaoru Wada was the composer for the series. Is gorgeous. Like objectively, like that music is fucking amazing. But yeah, it's really the characters that I think is what, you know, hooked everybody and kept everyone following through. Because the other thing was sort of the end of the story in terms of, you know, my following the show was I watched the entire series and up until the end when it finished up on Adult Swim. And then when it was done, I continued to watch or to read the manga, where I believe that Viz was like pretty well ahead of where the show was, or like eventually got there before Inuyasha, the final act, became a series. Then that didn't even come out over here for fucking ages. And I did watch the last couple episodes of that just because I wanted to see the ending in animated form. But by that point, I'd seen the ending in the manga. And I won't spoil it in case none of you have seen it or give a shit, but it's about what I expected. It was, you know, kind of like the ending of Naruto or like the ending of Harry Potter or whatever, where it's just like, yeah, that's about what I was expecting, and that's fine. I'm satisfied more or less. So there was that. But yeah, the characters, I really do like the main gang. I like the group of traveling party characters a lot. I think that they hold up. I think that they're a really, really good cast of characters with, you know, Shippo. I know Shippo is the one that everybody's just like, oh, for fuck's sake. It's like, he's fine. His main thing that bothers me, that actually the head producer, Toshi, I mentioned, he was joking about this, I think, on the panel back in the day, is like, whenever the fucking gang would get to like a new village and there'd just be like corpses everywhere from like a demon attacking, Shippo would come over and be like, are they all dead? And it's just like, no, Shippo, they're fine. No, they're just bleeding out, but they're fine. Don't worry about it. I think there was also one like Shippo-focused filler episode, I'm pretty sure it was a filler, that I swear to God, if they just removed the word damn, like that came up a couple times, or like bastard or something, literally that episode could have like aired on like Kids WB in the morning or something. It was so tame. And I was like, yeesh. But yeah, no, that aside, yeah, the main five, Inuyasha, Kagome, Miroku, Sango, and Shippo, and Kilala as well. I think that they're really good, iconic characters, and I think that they're the main reason why the series was so successful for such a long period of time. Sesshomaru was, I don't know. I mean, anime I feel wasn't like so overwrought with those, that many types of, characters. Like I've ripped on Bleach for a lot of stuff like that, where it's like, I have no personality and I'm all calm all the time. And Sesshomaru wasn't like obnoxious with that or anything. I think that actually Jokin and Rin being around kind of made me like him more because I liked that group's dynamic. And then I think even Kohaku was my favorite character. Sango's little brother was my absolute favorite character, particularly not just because like I thought he was cool, like his whole kind of backstory was very tragic and interesting, and his whole dynamic with Sango. His first English voice actor in the dub was a guy that Alex Dodak, who I studied a lot from because he was also on Mega Man NT Warriors LAN at the time, and he was really good. I liked him a lot for that. I liked his scythe weapon thing, and then the other thing was, even especially when they followed into the manga and the whole thing where like, he was only like reanimated because of the jewel shard that Naraku had kind of, implanted on him or whatever. But he got to a point where he was like, okay, I'm willing to sacrifice myself. I don't fucking care anymore. I can deal with, I can live with what it is that I did to my family and like, all the awful things that have happened. I just want the jewel to get finished so Naraku can fucking die already. And I'm just like, Kohaku, you were my goddamn hero. I love you. And on that same note, Naraku and his incarnations I actually found to be really intriguing villains. Normally a character like Naraku, I don't think would be like all that interesting. Like those are he's a type of villain that I think is very easy to fuck up. But I think the fact that he's just such a slimy bastard, and the fact that he is lazy in that he always prefers to not get his hands dirty, and he always has like he's willing to just make anybody into a fucking pawn for him. That was actually a really cool idea. And like Paul Dobson's performance on him is, just oozes evil, and he was so fucking good on him. I really liked his work a lot, and both Paul's voice work and also Naraku's work as a villain I thought was really intriguing. And even Kikyo, like not the fucking love triangle nonsense that I got fucking tired of after a while. And I honestly, well, I won't. Whatever, I'll spoil this because who gives a shit. I was kind of hoping and expecting that Kikyo was going to eventually sacrifice herself and be out of the picture because then the love triangle was finished. So when that happened in the manga, I was like, oh, thank fucking God. Okay, we can put that arc to a rest. And same thing with Koga, where he didn't die, but he left like 100%. He was like, I'm done. Bye. I give up, Kagome. Okay, go ahead. You can do whatever you want. And say, okay, good. At least there's ending to these arcs. I can live with that for fuck's sake, But yeah, and also I even remember I think Colin, who Nylock from Tome was based on, I kind of got him into the show a little bit, and I remember because I remember I sold him on one of my favorites, which was a warm and fuzzy episode, as I often like to describe. I can't remember what it was called, unfortunately, but it was basically when Inuyasha like tried to get Kagome to go back to the modern age that she came from and never come back, and then she eventually shows up again, and it's really somber, dramatic, like I loved that shit. I mean, I will admit again, like definitely the crazy berserker Inuyasha shit for Demon Alpha and etc. But also just the dramatic like kind of tone of that show I think was like watching a soap opera. And for some reason, like that and Gundam Seed, like I dug those shows as like my soaps as a kid. And maybe if you look at Inuyasha more like a soap opera, it's a little bit more enjoyable in that way. I don't know, maybe not, but that was kind of my mentality with it. So I do have fond memories. I'll say this though, to be real. I did try going back and rewatching that series a few years ago, I think by now, because I dug out my old DVDs. But I got maybe like 2 discs in, and I was just like, I can't do this. I've grown out of it. So, maybe someday I'll go back and like watch certain key episodes that I have like fond memories of or whatever. But rewatching the entire show all over again, I can't do it. So, it is what it is. But I think it does rightfully deserve the place that it earned. Rumiko Takahashi, I think, is a good writer and a good artist, and I give her credit. And I mean, obviously, I know that Ranma 1/2 and Urusei Yatsuda are both fantastic series as well. A lot more people tell me that those are the better stories that she did than prior to Inuyasha, which I believe is the case. I should check them out at some point because I'm sure I probably enjoy them all the same. But yeah, so that's kind of that's a bunch of stuff about Inuyasha. That's going to wrap this first installment of Animepril up. So I'm curious. Again, I'm always never sure as to off the most common age range of the people who listen to my Kirblogs. But to any of you out here who did grow up watching Inuyasha as it aired on Adult Swim, or like if you bought the DVDs, or maybe if you even jumped on board watching Final Act as it was on Adult Swim or something, I don't know. Tell me your memories of the series. Who are your favorite characters and why? What were your favorite opening and ending songs, favorite episodes, favorite moments, favorite things about that? Do you think that Inuyasha is totally not deserving of its place in anime history? If you have your negative comments, more than welcome to hear those too. I'm not going to take that. This is one of those series that I won't take personally if you're not a fan of. But curious for your thoughts. And again, I have plenty of other ones saved up. If you have ideas for future Kirblog topics, specifically for Animepril this month, leave a comment about that too, with suggestions for what anime you'd like to see, and I may in fact cover it on one coming up over this month. So thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye bye.